Patriots, before we dive into this heartbreaking and powerful story, I ask you, if you believe in truth, if you believe in accountability, and if you believe that American lives matter more than government red tape, then hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and ring that notification bell so the truth doesn't get buried by the mainstream machine. Because what we're about to talk about hurts. Kerr County, Texas, a peaceful, beautiful part of America, was just shattered. 82 innocent lives gone, families torn apart, children missing, camp counselors doing everything in their power to save young girls from waters rising faster than anyone could have predicted. And where was the government system that's supposed to warn us? Where were the sirens, the alerts, the protection? Now let me tell you something, folks. This isn't just a natural disaster. This is the result of decades of government failure, bureaucratic laziness, and a system so outdated, so broken, that even with all our technology, our people are still dying without warning.
Kerr County, Texas devastated, and 82 people dead after the state's catastrophic flooding.
President Trump signing a major disaster declaration for the county yesterday. This, as DHS Secretary Noem says, the flood exposes a neglected weather alert system.
Let's bring in the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Madam Secretary, can you give us a little lay of the land right here? What do you see that the folks here on the ground need? What resources, and what can we learn from this tragedy?
Well, this is a horrific situation, Lawrence. I mean, you're seeing it firsthand today. I was there on Saturday and spent my time with the governor and the emergency management responders and a lot of the families that have been impacted, some of the parents of those kiddos at Camp Mystic as well. It was absolutely devastating. So we responded immediately as soon as the request came in with Coast Guard assets, with Customs and Border Protection assets that were specially trained for these kind of rescue missions. Also, FEMA has been activated and at an enhanced level. The partnership between the federal government and the state and those local officials is very tight and working hard to make sure that we're bringing some relief to these families and finding people and reuniting people with victims of this flood as soon as possible. But it is, make no mistake, how tragic this situation is. And the president is fully engaged and willing to do all that he can to help the people of Texas through this, because it is a national situation that everybody's hearts are just broken over.
It really is. Madam Secretary, you had over the weekend said that there were some reforms needed for the emergency notification system. Can you be more specific about what those upgrades need to be?
Well, when I got there on Saturday, one of the number one questions we got asked was, we were notified, but we only had a couple hours of notice before this flash flood came. Was the National Weather Service proactive? What was the process that was followed? And the National Weather Service did send out notifications, gave as much time as they could with the tools that they have. And we actually had staff on the ground that was more than would have been in the past because of the holiday vacation. But frankly, the National Weather Service under President Trump has been working to put in new technology and a new system because it's been neglected for years. It's an ancient system that needed to be upgraded. And so President Trump recognized that right away and got to work on it when he came into office in January. But that installation is not complete and that technology isn't fully installed, but the alerts went out. We can continue to learn from every single situation, but know that during these times when we are trying to help people heal from situations like this, the best thing to do is to look and see how we can help and how we can walk alongside people and get them some relief, make sure that we're doing all that we can to be more proactive in the future, but get through this terrible time right now as well.
Sure. But was there any specific breakdown in this particular case that we should know about?
Not that we've found it so far. The National Weather Service put out the alerts when they received them. And unfortunately, in many places in our country, we have flash floods like this that do occur. And the notification was proactive and out there. Would everybody like more time? Absolutely. In so many situations when we see terrible events like this and these natural weather disasters, more notification is always extremely helpful. This situation was especially tragic because of the location, because of the holiday weekend, because of these kids in these camps that were impacted along the Guadalupe River. And the loss of life is just devastating. We know the numbers are continuing to rise, and we have been prepared for that. But boy, for those families that are sitting there waiting for word, their hearts are just broken, absolutely broken.
Madam Secretary, you stood next to the president as he talked about dismantling FEMA in favor of greater autonomy and targeted resources under the control of state and local officials. Does this tragic situation underscore that need for you, or does that change that dynamic of what would work best moving forward?
I think what we've seen here is exactly what President Trump has envisioned for FEMA, is immediately allowing the state to do the response and supporting them in every way that they can. So this response was driven by Governor Abbott and his emergency management director and the local officials that were on the ground. And we were immediately there to fill in the gaps where they needed and to give them their disaster declaration as soon as possible, which happened almost immediately as soon as the governor asked. That's the FEMA and how it should operate, rather than how it operated under the Biden administration and previous administrations, where it was slow to respond, slow to get resources there. We already have emergency response teams on the ground that have been there from the very beginning. And then we want to empower the states to do the response that's necessary to best serve their people. So, the FEMA that President Trump wants in place is one that takes care of people, but also empowers those people who live in those communities that know how best to respond to have the authority to do so.
Yeah, real quickly, Madam Secretary, I still can't get over the 45 minutes. I mean, from alert, 45 minutes to respond to the high level of water. I mean, I had one of your swimmers on, we had on Fox and Friends for the Coast Guard, and he said he didn't even feel safe getting in that water. So how can we expect, kids to respond in 45 minutes?
Yeah, I can't get over it either, Lawrence. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it. The alerts went out several hours in advance, but the rise in the level of water and how quickly that happened just really was unprecedented for this area, how quickly it happened in that alert, and what those individuals had to do to get to safety, and what those counselors and camp directors tried to do to get those girls to safety was absolutely unbelievable. Hugging those parents on Saturday as they were looking for their children. I talked to one father who found one of the best friends of his daughter while he was still looking for his daughter, hugged one of the grandpas who was looking for his granddaughter. Yesterday, Franklin Graham and I had a call and a prayer, and shared some scriptures with families at a church that were still waiting to find their loved ones, and spent some time visiting with them and talking to them about this difficult situation. It really is unbelievable, the tragedy that we are seeing. And my hope and prayer is that we can find by these people with their family members as soon as possible.
We join you, Secretary, in those prayers mightily. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem was on the ground, and she said what many in D.C. are too afraid to admit. Our emergency notification system is ancient. It's been neglected for years, and only recently, under President Trump, was there any attempt to modernize it. Let that sink in. Under Biden, crickets, no upgrades, no urgency, no leadership. Under Trump, he took action back in January, ordering upgrades. But let me be crystal clear, the installation isn't even complete yet, because of the slow-moving swamp we call Washington, D.C., and who pays the price for that? We do doubt the parents who hugged their daughters one last time at Camp Mystic. The first responders diving into danger. The grandparents now mourning. 82 souls whose lives could have been saved if the system was faster, smarter, and actually funded like it should be. Let me ask you something, America. How do we let this happen? This is exactly why President Trump has been fighting. To put FEMA back into the hands of the states. Enough of this top-down, federal-only response that arrives when it's already too late. Governor Greg Abbott and Texas local officials didn't wait. They acted fast. And FEMA, under Trump's model, didn't interfere. They backed up the state and filled in the gaps. That's how it should be. Not the Biden method of endless paperwork, delays, and excuses, but a model of empowered states, fast-moving teams, and a federal government that supports, not controls. Kristi Noem said it clearly. This is what FEMA was meant to be. Not a bloated federal machine, but a backup system that moves at the speed of the people, not the pace of red tape. And then there's the most haunting part, patriots. The floodwaters rose in just 45 minutes. Think about that. That's how much time parents had to respond. That's how much time children had to escape. That's how long camp leaders had to make split-second life and death decisions. A U.S. coast. Guard swimmer even said he wouldn't feel safe in those waters. So how can we expect young girls in the middle of a holiday weekend to survive that? It's gut-wrenching. And it's infuriating. Kristi Noem, with tears in her eyes, described hugging parents still searching for their children. She talked about praying with Franklin Graham, about the tragedy, about the pain, and about the hope that maybe, just maybe, we can fix this broken system before another American family has to go through this hell. So what can we do? We fight. We speak out. We demand accountability. We stand with the people of Kerr County, and we push for the America that puts its people before politics. Don't let the media bury this story. Don't let the bureaucrats off the hook. Share this video. Comment below with prayers for Texas. Let the families know they're not alone. And once again, like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because we will keep exposing the truth they don't want you to hear. This is about more than politics. Folks, this is about the soul of our country. God bless the victims. God bless Texas. And God bless the United States of America.